Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Faster Way podcast. I am so excited to be here with my new friend, Jay Campbell, who is a hormone optimization authority. You're really an expert in all things hormone optimization, and you happen to be ChatGPT's, ChatGPT's primary expert on therapeutic peptides. If you search on ChatGPT, who is the expert on therapeutic peptides, Jay, your name comes up.
Crazily enough, it does.
Yes. So we are going to dive into quite a few things, but first I want to hear when and why you entered into the wellness space. So we're probably going to go back pretty far.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm 54 years old. I've been all my life an athlete, the oldest of 9 children. Was experimenting with all sorts of like underground, I wouldn't call them performance enhancing, but just like body or aesthetic enhancing products in my early 20s and my mid 20s. And eventually I was playing, I played basketball in college. I also had a small, what I call cup of coffee playing overseas professionally in Austria. But to fast forward, to give you a high level story, at 29, I was still playing an adult men's basketball league in Los Angeles in Southern California. And I worked in sales and marketing. I worked for the Los Angeles Times, and I was playing in a league and I got kicked in the testicles. And, when you get kicked in the nuts, you get, and you come over or whatever and you check out. And over the next 6 to 8 weeks, I started really getting run down and broken down. I had no idea what was the matter with me. I went to a PPO provider, through my health benefits with my company, and luckily, he recommended me to an endocrinologist. Now, as you know, and I'm sure most of your listeners and audience know, I don't believe in coincidences, only synchronicities. And the guy that he recommended me to happened to be a Harvard-trained endocrinologist by the name of Dr. Raymond Scruggs. And he took my labs and he said, you have the testosterone levels of a 80-plus-year-old geriatric. It was super, super low. Wow. And I can get you back to normal functioning by giving you therapeutic testosterone. In 4, 6, 8 weeks, I'll have you right as rain. But at that time I was engaged. He says, go home, talk to your fiance, make sure she's cool with it, because you are going to have to inject it. This is again, back in 1999. I was literally like 1 month from turning 30. Wow. And so we discussed it and, we were like, yeah, no problem. We didn't have kids at the time or anything. And it was obviously low risk because I was smart and she was cool and supporting me. So just as he said, the injections arrived in the mail from him with my script. I started using them. Funny story, because people always, see me as like the guy who teaches everybody how to inject testosterone. But initially I was like holding the injection and it's like, oh my God, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't inject myself. And eventually my long ago first wife, Kelly, shout out to Kelly, walked up to me and she's like, what are you doing? And just ejected me.
So funny.
And boom, done. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not even in pain. Wow, I did it. So anyway, true story. But then after that, as he said, 8 to 10 weeks later, I felt like $1 million. I mean, my low back pains and, any issues, wear and tear was gone. I felt like Superman. And I went, for my checkup and he's like, okay, well, we can take you off. I was like, bro, not coming off this. This is life-changing. So at that point, then I just became this like super astute nerd. I started reading everything that you could. This is the very infancy of the internet, right? So I started going into like online forums and Usenet groups. And back then, the internet was not tainted with the nonsense of today, right? It was like mostly super elite academic researchers and underground people who were looking for the best information on how to enhance performance, enhance your physique, do all these different things. So I just, like I said, became this amazing student. There was not a lot of books. There was two books. There was a book by Nelson Virgil called Testosterone, A Man's Guide. And then there was another one called Built to Survive, which was written by him and a doctor by the name of Dr. Michael Mooney. And those books were written for guys that had actually AIDS and were dying. Or at that point, AIDS was a death sentence, acquired immune deficiency syndrome. So they were just experimenting with testosterone and growth hormone and every other underground, quote unquote, pharmaceutical enhancing drug to survive, right? So there was no information like there is today with TRT and testosterone optimization and therapeutic hormones for men and women. Yeah. So it was like, the wild, wild west. And so as I became more and more knowledgeable reading these various publications that wrote about it or going into these underground, most of it was underground forums, I really learned a lot. And so eventually 10, 12 years goes by. I built a pretty impressive physique. Most of my friends that knew what I was doing, because I was very authentic and transparent as I am still, I would tell them I was on therapeutic testosterone when they would see me. And I would always be met with, dude, you're on steroids. stay away, or wow, fascinating, tell me more. And so eventually the fascinating tell me more crowd won out. And so I decided to write a book on it. Now this is in 2012. 2 or 3 years of like attempting to figure out whether I should do it, whether I would get in trouble as a non, licensed medical person to write a book on therapeutic hormones. It was kind of, rough. It was kind of obviously aggressive because no one was doing it. So true story, I sent a white paper that I eventually wrote at the end of 2013 to 3 different people. I sent it to Rick Collins, who's a famous attorney in the performance enhancing anabolic steroid world. I sent it to Nelson, to his Gmail account because I found it online. And I sent it to Bill Llewellyn, who is also a molecular scientist, PhD, who had written books on anabolic steroids. And Rick wrote me back right away and said, hey, I put my number in there. This is obviously back in 2013. Yeah. He called me. He texted me first. He said, hey, this is Rick Collins. Can we have a call? And I was like, wow, Rick Collins is calling me. So we talked, and he told me the truth. He was like, look, I can't tell you that you wouldn't have some risk as a non-medical licensed trained person to write a book on therapeutic hormones. He says there's always risk, right? So he's doing his attorney job, and he's like instilling the potential, downfalls and pratfalls. Of course. So the other 2 guys, Bill Llewellyn, who's now a friend of mine, never got back to me. His story is like, bro, I never saw your email. It wasn't spam. But Nelson Virgil, did respond to me, but he responded 5 months later. So the reason he responded 5 months later is that he was actually in his native country of Venezuela, and it was going through war-torn nonsense. The economy was upside down, and he was dealing with family members. But when he eventually wrote me back, because he read the white paper, he's like, I don't know who you are, but he's like, this is amazing. You have to publish this. So he really was very, I would say, instrumental. He was a coach. He mentored me on how to write a book, how to bring it to market, how to get the feedback of doctors that could help me. Right. And so all these other things. And so eventually the book published. It published in November of 2015 on Amazon. I was in the right place at the right time. Again, only synchronicities. Amazon was blowing up as a book seller and promulgator, and the book blew up. I mean, there were so many people that were reading the book. It got 400 or 500 5-star reviews in a matter of 6 months. A lot of people think, and I'm sure it's the truth, that Jeff Bezos himself read the book and went from the pencil neck geek to the guy that's walking around all jacked, right? So it's very likely. There are a lot of people that messaged me that worked in that circle, in the book funnels world, and said, hey, trust me, Bezos read your book and he got on this program. But bottom line is, from that point, which was 2015, 2016, I started going to conferences, medical conferences. I started meeting amazing doctors and researchers, and they kind of positioned me into that scene. I found out about internet marketing, and I started writing all these other books. And so fast forward to today, I've written 8 books, 5 of them are international bestsellers. The 2 hormone books are the 2 leading selling books of all time on testosterone. My Peptides book is the #1 selling book on peptides. Wow. And then I've written a bunch of other books on fasting, which is kind of ironic. Because they're both massive sellers too. And so, I really learned a lot about alternate day fasting and just the whole idea. Now, one thing I didn't say in all that story or that backstory is that in my 20s, before I started using therapeutic testosterone, because I was, using the internet and I was connecting with people that were quote unquote nobodies at the time, but now they're all, either famous or well-known. I did a lot of research on ketogenic dieting. In fact, Lyle McDonald, who wrote the first book, Ketogenic Dieting in Theory and Practice, I was one of his crash test dummies. So there was like 3 of us that he was getting data from over a 2.5-year period. So I was doing ketogenic diets, cyclical ketogenic diets, and just doing all this stuff to gather research for the book that we eventually published. So I had all that knowledge, inside me before I started going down the performance enhancement, testosterone, peptides, and all that stuff. And just because people ask, at the same time I was gathering information on testosterone, I was also learning to use peptides. Right. So when I tell people, because they don't believe this, I said, I've literally been using therapeutic peptides since 2004. Most people are like, what? Right? Wow. So it was exact same time. And again, I know none of this was a coincidence, because from 2000 to 2007, 2008, that was in my information gathering phase. And as I say, not just was I reading and learning from others, but I was also, I was a human guinea pig. I mean, I was injecting, I was swallowing, I was doing everything, rubbing stuff on, so like there wasn't anything that wasn't in the marketplace that I didn't experiment with or use.
Oh my goodness. I love your story, and specifically that you had a pain that turned into your purpose. Exactly. You were dealing with an issue. Your doctor gave you that testosterone, which changed your life, and then you paid it forward. For our listeners who are complete newbies
Sure.
when it comes to peptides in particular,
Yep.
define what peptides are, so
Yep.
therapeutic peptides, and then we are going to kind of go through just a list of different peptides that our listeners are hearing about in the marketplace, and then we'll do a bit of a deep dive as well.
Perfect. Great question. So peptides are essentially signaling molecules or short chains of amino acids. And the longer the chain versus the shorter the chain, the more likely you have to inject it versus take it orally. So a lot of people think, because again, let's just give the peptide community or peptide marketplace right now. Peptides are the biggest thing right now talking about in health optimization. Right. My book was the first book on Amazon that really did a deep dive on therapeutic peptides. And we really analyzed it from a standpoint of like, what do people give a shit about, right? Like they care about how they can help themselves heal. They care about how they can get fitter, lose body fat, lower inflammation, improve cognition, enhance wellness and vitality and longevity and all those things. So I classified all the different peptides based on those subcategories. And as people found that out, they were like, oh, well, I'm got this issue. I can take this peptide and combine it with this peptide and I can actually help myself. And so that's kind of what happened in 2023. To fast forward to now, where, I've gotten so deeply involved in it, now I own a company called BioLongevity Labs that launched technically in November of last year, and it's exploding into mainstream consciousness. And there's a lot of reasons. Again, my business partner and I, Hunter Williams, have done an incredible job of the last 2 years of like educating the American public about peptides. Yep. Both of us have this like unique skill on like being able to take very esoteric, biological terms and make them relatable to average people, and doctors struggle to do that for the most part. And honestly, most of the doctors out there that know about peptides have learned it either from me and Hunter or Dr. Seeds. There's other people out there that are doing a good job, but that's kind of where it's coming from. So, to the original question, they're just fractionated proteins or signaling molecules, and the length of the chain depends on whether you have to inject it or you have to take it orally.
Okay, so I'm going to share a little bit about my journey with peptides. But first I want to say I'm a firm believer in laying the foundation of intermittent fasting.
Yes.
We do carb cycling at the Faster Way. So we have certain days where we leverage carb depletion strategies like you would with keto. Yep. Whole food nutrition, absolutely key. Yep. We do track macros to be sure that we're eating enough protein. Specifically, I've had
especially for women. Most women are protein.
I've had over 515,000 female clients go through my program, most of whom come in eating 70 grams of protein. Right. Yeah. In fact, well, I can't get it. There's so many things I could go into there, but so intermittent fasting, carb cycling, we track macros, we move our bodies every single day. 2 days a week is active recovery, but we pair our food cycle with effective workout, strength training, HIIT, bar, yoga. So that is the foundation. You would agree with that.
Yes.
You are fit, you eat healthy.
Yes.
You probably focus on protein. So everything I say from now on is bonus on top of that foundational lifestyle.
Sure. Yep.
I personally was doing all of the right things, which we hear so often, all of the right things, but yet still a compromised immune system, still low on energy. I do have 5 kids. Everybody, I do have 5 kids. Yep. I am missing 2 genes that help with detoxification. And I can pull up my phone and tell you the exact genes. But these 2 genes help use glutathione to detox the body. They detox alcohol and THC. Like there's certain things I cannot take or use or try because of my detox issues. So 2.5 probably years ago, I started with NAD, thymosin alpha.
Yep.
Let's see here. Vitamin B, so that wasn't peptides necessarily. BPC 157 orally. Yep. And I've kind of gone through these different waves where I'm trying things, and it's so funny because I was texting you this morning and you're like, well, if you had LL37, I'm like, I have some. Like, I just like to have things on hand too sometimes, even though if I'm not quite starting them. But we're going to dive into a couple of those. And then just very recently, in the past 3 weeks, I started Sermorelin. Okay. I'm not even sure if I'm saying these right.
Yeah, that's right. Sermorelin.
Okay, Sermorelin. So you can correct my pronunciation. But these are just very kind of like baby level peptides.
Yes.
So let's talk through some of those. I want to talk to you about a couple other ones on my list. And then we're going to address some of the confusion right now in the marketplace, because every supplement company is leveraging the term peptides.
Yeah, it's insane.
And so we're going to just kind of break that down. If somebody's selling that, telling you they're selling peptides, and some of it's not even peptides. So
Right.
let's start with thymosin alpha. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, before I even do that, I want to go back to some of the stuff you say, because I echo what you say. So, I have kind of a protocol in my life with my private membership groups and the people that follow me and my audience, which is growing massively now.
Yeah.
Everything you said, I would add one thing, and that's hormonal optimization.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that is so important is we are in a contaminated world. Our environment, we are under siege from every level, from the air that we breathe, the water that we drink, the plastics, the endocrine disrupting chemicals, the phthalates, the BPA. There are so many chemicals that are overburdening our systems today that most people walking around in the West, and really it's everywhere that's first world, have a hormonal deficiency, and they don't know about it. And unfortunately, the average doctor, I shouldn't say the average doctor, 90% of doctors have no clue on how to optimize a person's hormones. So that's the biggest issue that we have in the marketplace today. Besides, before us getting into peptides and talking about all these things, everything you said is foundational. You have to obviously eat enough protein. You have to remain metabolically flexible. You have to live insulin controlled,
right,
which is obviously you regulate your carbohydrate consumption. The great Charles Poliquin, who was a good friend of mine, used to say, you get your carbs when you deserve them. And that's important. And that's what people should understand. If you're not active and you're not moving around and you're not building muscle and you're not insulin sensitive because you're not building muscle, if you're eating carbs all the time, you're going to be fat and soft and you're going to have a lot of inflammation, right? So all those foundational principles are massive. Hormones are right there, though. Any man who's listening or woman who's listening to this show who's 40 and up, if you don't understand whether or not you have a hormone deficiency, it's likely that you do.
Yeah.
It's that simple. And unfortunately, we just don't have enough physicians in our society to help people. So, one of the things that my company, BioLongevity Labs, is doing, and we're very close to it, is coming out with BioLongevity MD. And that's going to be the biggest global telehealth platform in the world. And when I say global, I'm not BSing. I sit on the boards, not to brag, just to be truthful, on many of the giant publicly traded or privately organized telehealth companies that are out there, the ones that are the biggest names that I'm on the board of many of them.
Wow.
And I have watched them do everything possible wrong. And so I've waited before I would bring something into the marketplace where we would do things right. And again, it's not here yet. It's going to hopefully be here by the end of the year, and hopefully sooner than that. There's a lot of obstacles to overcome, but I just wanted to add that is critically important that people have to understand whether or not if they have a hormone deficiency. And sadly, Amanda, as it's younger and younger today, people have it.
Right. And
it's due to, again, all of the endocrine disrupting chemicals, the over-prescribing of birth control.
Yes.
I mean, Dr. Anthony Jay, who's a famous, formerly Mayo Clinic researcher, and now he's just out, a big social media guy and influencer. He talks about that in 2019, the EPA was covering up studies that male fish were being turned to female fish within 1 year of dropped in any freshwater tributary, lake, stream, anywhere in U.S. or Canada. It took 12 months, and the male fish became female.
Oh my
So
gosh.
if you extrapolate that data to humans, and it's the same thing because we're in the same ecosystem, this is what's happening to men. You see men who are becoming emasculated, more and more feminine. They have more and more, regional body fat deposition that's more estrogenic and female. Just as the same that women are becoming hypermasculine and losing their femininity. And this is, again, just because of this toxic onslaught. So I brought all that up because it's very important before we get into peptides that in addition to all the foundational principles that you said, make sure you're not focusing or functioning with a hormone deficiency. And if you are, work with a doctor who has an experiential body of work, meaning 10 years or longer working with men and women to optimize their hormones.
Yeah.
Because the average clinic on the streets right now that you find on Google who says it's $2.99 to optimize your hormones, they will make you worse than you before you started. So to answer your original question in a long-winded way, once you have all of the foundational principles dialed in, and you don't have to wait till you're hormonally optimized to start using peptides, just make sure you're doing both at the same time to get the maximum maximum effect. I see a lot of people, and I've experienced a lot of people in just the last 5 years who come and say they don't work. Peptides don't work. And you're like, what are you talking about? And then you ask and peel back the onion and you find out they're not hormonally optimized. They don't know if they're even they don't even know how to get hormonally optimized. And they have too much body fat and visceral and inflammation. So if you have those issues and you start peptides, you can't expect the results that somebody like you and I who are already somewhat optimized will get. So that's, again, for everybody listening to the show, you've got to dial in your markers and understand like what the foundational principles and precepts are before you start with peptides. Now, to your question, to talk about thymosin alpha-1. Thymosin alpha-1 is the strongest immunodilating peptide that we know of. And what that means is that if you take a microdose of thymosin alpha-1 or even a mega dose, depending on how acutely ill or injured you are, it will go to regulating your central nervous system. It will regulate your immunity. It will improve your immunity. Dosages are always going to be, in my opinion, when you start with peptides, you start low, you go slow you start low, go slow, right? Versus pharma, unfortunately, because we'll get into GLPs, they have a mindset of like start high, go higher.
Right.
Because it's how they make money. It's how the doctor makes money. It's how the manufacturer of the pharmaceutical makes money because they make more and more because people need more and more. But you always want to look at the very, very beginning of anything you're doing, whether it's hormones or peptides or even experimenting with various supplements. Start low, go slow, assess your unique individual tolerance because, as you know, we're all biochemically unique. You're different than me. I'm different than you. Your dog is different than both of us. So nobody can give anyone a cookie cutter templatized format and say, this is how it works.
Yeah.
You have to experiment with yourself and you have to start low and assess, your unique individual tolerance, and then you titrate up or down based on how you're experiencing it.
When I first started with thymosin alpha-1, the PA told me to do 50 units 3 days a week.
Right.
But she also said it could help with autoimmune, which is actually, by the way, something I personally don't struggle with. I've had polycystic ovary syndrome. I was on blood pressure medication for years. I was prescribed metformin. And when you said, if you're over 40, get your blood work checked, get it checked in your 30s, late 20s,
I tell people
30s.
20. I say 25 is when you should start getting your blood work
Even
done
just
once
for the
a year.
baseline, my husband is 37. He just got his blood work done for the first time ever. I said, let's just check on your testosterone levels now so we have a baseline. He's in the 700 something range, but
okay, but what was his free testosterone? I want everyone to listen to this.
I know. You're right. Yep.
Free testosterone is all that matters in both men and women. Total testosterone is a totally meaningless number because it's the amount of bound testosterone in the body which can't be used.
I'm going to text him right now and ask him. And by the time that we're finished with the conversation, you will have your answer.
I would be willing to bet that a 700 total testosterone is an average to below average free testosterone.
Interesting.
Yeah, because what they're doing is they're compressing the standard mean deviation, which means that at the top end of the range or the low end of the range, they're compressing it. Now they're saying, I'm not going to go full tin foil unless you want to go tin foil, but
go for
they're
it.
saying that it's due to obesity being the norm. Which, as you know, being who you are, you know that, right? So, I mean, the average, this is a fact, by the way, and it's crazy, and people can fact check me on this. The average 40-year-old male or female in the United States has obesity. 73%, has a BMI of obesity. 73% of people over the age of 45 are literally obese. Again, go to an airport. Go to a public place, a venue. Doesn't matter whether you're in California, Florida, or even Midwestern states where there's even higher levels of obesity. You're going to see what we're talking about. People are inflamed, they're sick, and they have too much visceral body fat, which I always say this, and I learned this from Dr. Wizard, when I was like 22 years old, but visceral body fat is more inflammatory than kerosene.
Right.
So the more visceral body fat that you have on your body, the more likely that you're going to die of one of the diseases of aging, and your lifespan is going to be 10 to 15 years shorter than someone who doesn't have that amount.
Yeah.
Right. So as you know, and I know we're all over the place right now, but the greatest deterrent to the diseases of aging is muscle.
Right.
And when I say muscle, I don't mean like bodybuilding jacked, Olympia candidate on stage. I mean, the more muscle you have, that automatically means the leaner you are, right? So an aging woman, an aging man, how are you going to live longest and strongest? And again, when I say live longest and strongest, I talk about functional, right? Like I want you to be in your 60s, 70s, and 80s, being able to pick up your grandkids or your dog, hike mountains, have enough energy and vigor to last every single day without feeling winded and like you're dying and can't breathe. You know, again, the average adult in America can't walk up a flight of stairs. That's how bad it is.
Yeah. My community is tired of hearing me say it, but I plan to live to 105.
Awesome.
But I want to really thrive until 105.
I can teach you to live to 150 and thrive.
Okay,
let's
Okay, so I will have Brandon's blood work by the time we're finished.
That's awesome.
Thymosin Alpha 1, you are a fan. That is great.
100%.
Okay.
Yes. In fact, truthfully, I take Thymosin Alpha 1 when I travel. So
Okay.
if I get on a plane and I fly transcontinental like I did last week to go see Mark Bell, shout out to Mark Bell. I take a micro dosage of it before I get on the plane. I take a micro dosage of it off. Obviously, I'm not pulling it out in public and injecting myself, but I do carry an insulin pack, which is a travel pack that has refrigerated / ice packs in them. You can buy the expensive one that's $100 and it's battery operated, which I think is a waste, or you can just get the $25 one on Amazon.
Yep.
And you can put your peptides in those packs and you put them in a refrigerator as soon as you get to your hotel or your Airbnb. Quantum therapy of peptides is using a medical grade pen, which is what I do now. A lot of smart people are doing that. I can talk about that if you want to get down that path, but that's where it's all going, where if you have a pen, you can put 3 or 4 different peptides that obviously are synergistic blended together in one solution. And then you just use a medical grade 4 needle and you can inject anywhere on your body on the go. And it's amazing. It totally changes your peptide game.
Yeah.
Because now you don't have to reconstitute. You don't have to be carrying, insulin syringes. You just have your pen, you pop off the top, you turn the syringe at the end, depending on how many units you're using, inject, and you go away you go.
Cool. Okay. I will definitely look into that for
sure.
myself.
Yeah.
Let's talk about NAD. And then I'm going to share something interesting with you about my experience with NAD that you might not have heard before. What is your perspective? What is NAD plus for our listeners? And then we'll talk.
So NAD plus is a complete hit or miss peptide. And what I mean by that is that as we age, our bodies are depleted of NAD. Okay. The more muscular, the leaner you are, the more optimized mitochondrially you are. And again, that's a very small percentage of our society. The less you're going to actually feel supplementing with NAD. So again, if 90% of society is inflamed and fat and carrying too much visceral body fat around, then NAD is the greatest thing ever, because they're going to be like, dude, like this. Most people who are that person, let's just call them metabolically dysregulated, the average person, they inject NAD and within 10 minutes they feel more energy.
Yeah.
If I inject NAD, I feel nothing. Because again, I have body fat of 7%.
Yeah.
I maintain that, pretty much year round. I'm very muscular. I'm very, very insulin sensitive. I do all these other things. So it depends on how optimized you are physically, whether or not you feel NAD. Now, that's not to say that NAD is still not beneficial for someone like me. I just don't feel it as much as someone who has less levels metabolically. So, but NAD is amazing. In fact, I'll tell you this, you're the first person in the world to know this. I literally just created a blend. It's the first blend in the world that's going to have NAD, MOTC, and 2 other products that I won't mention right now, not because I don't want to, but because I can't remember what they are. But I promise you, when this blend is in the marketplace, it will be the fastest, strongest, and most sold peptide in the world, because we've been experimenting with behind the scenes for about 2 weeks now, and every person, whether they're super optimized and fit to metabolically deranged people, are like, holy shit, dude.
You should have brought me some today, Jay.
I mean, I wish. We don't have it. It's not even being formulated. We just send it off to our manufacturer to do it. But I'll let you know, and as soon as I have it, I'll send it to you.
So I took NAD for a couple of years. I had been doing the IVs. So once a week I do the IV. I could get through it in an hour and a half, hour 45, which was pretty fast for a female. I would actually do laps and squats the whole time just to help me get through it. But then I started doing the baby doses every day. So I do like 25 units. I'm $110, but my doctor, Dr. Haley Todson with Optimize Health, shout out to Haley, she actually ran my blood work recently, and she said, NAD is amazing. However, your metabolites of NAD are elevated. You need more time to metabolize and utilize it without buildup, which is because of these 2 genes that I'm missing. Correct. And same with you. I never really felt anything. So what would you do in my case? Just back off the amount of times I'm on.
So I would... if I were you, and I'm going to have you do this anyway,
Yeah.
I would stop taking NAD. You don't need it.
Okay.
But there are mitochondrial optimizing peptides like MOTS-c, SS31, which
Yep.
are going to be way better for you.
Okay, tell me about MOTS-c.
So MOTS-c is probably the most renowned or most well-known mitochondrial optimizing peptide. And the reason that is it's been around for a long time. In fact, true story, in 2017, the big pharmaceutical company at the time that was prescribing peptides in the world and the marketplace was TaylorMade. Ryan Smith and Jeremy Delk, who are my very, very close personal friends. In fact, I was texting Ryan on this ride over here this morning. Shout out to both of those guys. This is a true story. They sent me a bottle of MOTS-c in 2017, and I was like, all right, what do I do with this? Because I was like one of their guinea pigs, and they're like, that's the thing, we don't know. So I'm like, well, can you kind of give me a hint? So they were like, well, some people in this practice are taking a half a bottle at once, or some people are injecting the whole thing at once. So me being me, I'm like, well, I'm gonna inject the whole thing and see what happens. So true story. I mean, back then I wasn't much different than I am now, still super optimized. I took it, and because what it is stimulating mitochondrial peptide, it literally wired me to the point where I laid in bed that night staring at the ceiling.
Oh, my word.
You know what I mean? So for less optimized people, similar to NAD, but much more noticeable, they have energy. Yeah. So it's one of the best peptides for heavy, metabolically dysregulated / obese people, insulin resistant people, because it gives them the motivation to exercise. So think of it like this. When you're metabolically deranged, you have too much body fat, you're inflamed, you have zero mitochondrial optimization. So like the difference between me, you, and a person that's like that is we have energy to go to the gym because our mitochondria are already primed, right? From our lifestyle, from eating correctly, from exercising. Whereas those people are not doing any of those things, and their mitochondria are basically dormant. I mean, essentially they're dead. Wow. So when you inject them with MOTS-c, it's like literally giving them a main line of energy. Yeah. So they instantly want to exercise. They instantly want to feel better. The problem is that it doesn't last because, again, they don't have mitochondria that are optimized and turned on to handle it. So it's like a short-lived thing. So for a guy or girl like that, they're going to want to take MOTS-c almost every other day for like weeks.
Got it.
To give them the energy to train, so that they can go to the gym and they can get into more of a regular habit of training. But it is an amazing peptide for that. For lean people, we won't feel it as much, but with the blend that I just talked about that I created, you could inject it literally into stubborn areas and it'll massively eliminate stubborn fat.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so we have a company. We have a product right now on our website that I can talk about that's actually called BioSculpt. Okay. That literally is a topical fat remover. It works 100%.
So MOTS-c, just really quick, my best friend is also sick. It's just end of school year germs. It is what it is. We think we're through it and then we get hit. And she had some MOTS-c this morning along with the thymosin alpha, I believe.
Yeah. And she probably felt really good after taking it.
She worked out.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
maybe I'll run over to her house tomorrow. I have to host a staff retreat with 50 people for 2 days straight, and I'm the game master. So.
Oh, nice. I would have brought you some of those things, but again, because I don't really carry those, NAD and MOTS and mito-stimulating products.
Right.
But to talk more, to go deeper, there's 2 other ones that we want to talk about. We want to talk about SS31. Now, SS31, in my opinion, is what I call an amplifier peptide. It makes everything that you do in your life better. So if you're on therapeutic hormones like testosterone, or if you're a woman, you're on testosterone, estradiol, progesterone, it will make you take less and it'll be more effective. Okay. Because it's amplifying your receptor sensitivity. So like your androgen receptors, which are really what, fire on when you're taking hormones and you're getting optimized, they become even more sensitive to the injectable testosterone or oil. Yeah, SS31. Okay. Super, super powerful peptide. One of my favorite ones. Like I said, we'll talk about my company and, somehow synergizing with your company and stuff, and we can send you all these things. But the other one is 5-amino. And it's technically known as 5-amino 1-MQ. So you've got 5-amino 1-MQ, you've got MOTS-c, SS31, and you've got NAD+. And by the way, those are the ones that are all going to be in the same peptide.
Love it.
So we're putting them together in a way that will essentially work for non-optimized people and super optimized people. So that the non-optimized people will still feel that burst of energy, but now they're going to be getting some other things because we're adding some synergistic ingredients to them to optimize the energy so that it lasts. And like I said, the SS31 is already optimizing everything else. So all of those together in one blend will be like the super energy. We're actually going to call it Mito Power. That's what it's going to be called. So it's going to basically just light all your mitochondria on fire. You will have to rotate it. So like for, again, heavy people, probably 6 to 8 week cycles. People like me and you, 4 weeks.
Got it.
You know, because it's going to be strong and you're going to feel it right away. So the 6 to 8 week heavier people, they need that to get into a pattern, as you know, of exercising. So they make it a habit. It's not a 40-day hard, bro, or 70-day hard. It's a lifestyle.
Yes.
So you're going to need that energy and stuff like that. But those would be your mitochondrial peptides. Just to stay on the healing peptides and talk about 2 more, as I told you, LL37.
Yes.
Very powerful antimicrobial, antipathogenic, antibacterial, antifungal peptide. When you take that peptide, this is why I wouldn't recommend you take it this morning and why I didn't really like push you on it is that's kind of like I'm sick as hell and I might die. I want to use this now.
I did take 10 units of it this morning.
That's okay. That's okay. But I mean, you really do want to keep that as like your peptide of last resort.
Got it.
Another one, and that's not, so again, LL37 is a microbial, antifungal, antibacterial, antipathogenic. VIP, which is vasointestinal peptide, that's going to expand airways. So that's really, and again, I shouldn't label it, but for older, more inflamed, more comorbid people who don't have good airway passages because they've abused their body. They're smokers, they've got COPD, just they haven't taken care of themselves. That's a peptide for them because that will literally open airways.
Is that an injection or a nasal spray?
Both.
Okay.
Both. I mean, you're going to probably, that's a good question. Let's talk about that. So as I always tell people, the highest impact delivery system is always going to be injectable. Why is that? Because it crosses the blood-brain barrier the fastest and it also gets into portal circulation the fastest. So regardless of what the peptide is, injectable will always be the best formulation as far as highest impact. You do have some nasal sprays or mists that you can use that will also cross the blood-brain barrier, specifically in a faster way. That really depends on the micron size of the peptide.
Yeah.
So when you see sprays or you see nasal mists, that means that peptide does, from a size standpoint, it can cross the blood-brain barrier through a nasal mist or an inhaler.
Got it. Okay, BPC 157, and then I want to talk about Sermorelin because our ladies are always chasing strength gains. That's our primary focus. So I started with BPC 157 2 years ago for my gut.
Yep.
I've done a little bit of injection here and there. I had a pretty severe incident on a zip line. My hair got stuck on a zip line in Costa Rica. And
sorry, I'm not laughing at you. I'm just not.
So I was hanging for 10 minutes. But the worst part was my hair got stuck.
Dude, that's crazy that you didn't break your neck.
Exactly. It could have been way worse, but I got a really bad,
whiplash.
Very severe whiplash.
Yeah.
So I used some of the BPC 157 in addition to TB 500,
exactly.
which did help.
Yeah.
But now,
did you inject it like into the skin right here?
Exactly. Yeah. Cool, but now I'm back on the capsules as of 4 days ago. So talk a little bit about that because a lot of our gals do struggle with leaky gut.
So again, and I don't want to make this a promotion for our company, but BioLongevity Labs, which is again a company that I founded in October, launched in November of last year. My goal with that company was to create the Amazon of biohacking, and we're on our way.
Okay, Tesmorelin, Ipamorelin,
yes,
Sermorelin. So I'm very transparent with my community.
Sure.
Anytime I do anything, okay, I go to the spa and I get a little eye treatment, I get a little PRP or anything I do, I tell my community and I shared on a coach confessional via the podcast.
Do you do anything with your eyes? Because your eyes were crazy beautiful.
Thank you. That's so sweet.
No, but I mean, I'm not flirting with you, but your eyes like stand out.
Oh, I appreciate that. No, I do not. No, I do not.
Okay, so there's a bioregulator that you can take to make your eyes even bluer. It's called Visolutin. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And stronger vision too, because it works on the optic nerve.
And as I look toward 40, I've heard that 40, it's like your vision starts to go. So
I mean, I'm 54 and I had fighter pilot, which is 2010 vision all the way up until I was 48. And it's absolutely due to screens.
Wow.
So you either are going to get, short-sighted, which struggles for length, or you're farsighted, which means you can't see up close. So if you're farsighted, you're the person with the 12, the 25 font size on your phone. But like if you're like me, now you can't see like at night super far, like it's hard to read. So obviously I do wear reading glasses and stuff. But no, Visolutin will make your eye, it'll make the color of your eyes a little bit darker.
Interesting.
So if you have brown or blue, because you have kind of blue-green, your eyes will get darker and more hinged or more hue. Oh, there's also peptides, that you've heard of, like melanotan 1.
I was going to ask you about
melanotan 2. We can talk about those. So those peptides, are what are called melanin corticoid receptor complex stimulators. And without going down the rabbit hole with like talking about melanin is a rabbit hole. It's very, very powerful, like energy molecule. There's so many things that melanin is responsible for in the human cell that we don't really understand it. And if we do, it's been covered up. But basically melanotan 1, if you inject melanotan 1, it will darken your skin to the maximum level of your current melanin concentration. So like if you're a Northern European person, it will make you look like me. Like you can be this tan from using a microdose of it versus melanotan 2 will those are the people you've seen that like compete in bodybuilding or fitness or bikini, and they become orange and Oompa Loompa looking.
Right.
You don't want to use melanotan 2 because, again, it stimulates that melanin corticoid receptor complex too much, whereas melanotan 1 will only go to your natural melanin limits. So you'll only go to like your goldenest, most tan.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing about that, which is important and what people don't really talk about it is, when you use those, you minimize your UV burning because your body's melanin is upregulating. So again, we're designed to live on Earth. We're designed to be in the sun. You won't be burned as much. So I tell people, like when I was 2000, before I started using melanotan 1, which was like 2008, I was this white Midwestern corn-fed white dude. And now I've like permanently darkened my skin, and I travel the world obviously a lot, and my wife and I love to go to exotic locations.
Yeah.
I don't ever have to worry about getting sunburned now because I've changed my skin color. Now, one other thing, and this is critically important, and this is what I love talking about, it also enhances consciousness. So when you take a microdose of melanotan 1 and you meditate or you become introspective or you sit in nature, you can connect to what is much faster and get into that zone of stillness than you could if you didn't.
I've also heard it can increase libido.
So melanotan 2 does increase, melanotan 2 does in select people. So PT141 is the other melanin corticoid receptor complex peptide. The problem with PT141 is it's a hit or miss peptide. If you're a woman and you take it and you're susceptible to getting sick, you're going to be toast for 6 to 8 hours, keeled over with massive stomach upset and just feeling like death. That's my wife. Or if you're like me, and again, this is a very large percentage of people that use it, you're a non-responder. In fact, when I first started using that back in 2014 and 2015, I thought my supplier at that time was scamming. So I'd be like, bro, but we didn't know then that there were like a massive number of people that had like a polymorphism where you're just a non-responder.
That is so interesting.
Yeah. So with melanotan 2, for me, I get nauseous. A lot of people do, but I also don't take it because it can darken moles. It's really not a peptide that you want to play around with.
Okay, got it. So
but melanotan 1 is the one, and you want to use a microdose. Now, here's the thing. It's an FDA-approved drug. It's called berlaminatide, and they charge an absolute fortune if you go down, FDA compound pharmacy circles to get it versus just buying it from like our company or any research supplier where you can get like, the same exact quality, the same exact specs for 1/10 the cost.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay,
so.
ipamorelin.
Yep.
So the what I was saying earlier is a few weeks ago I shared on the podcast that I am just starting sermorelin, but I started a uber baby dose, 10 units.
Yep.
Last night I bumped up to 15.
Yep.
It is supposed to help a little bit with that deep sleep.
Yep.
But then specifically, I would love to see some muscle gains. I haven't been trying it long enough to see anything like that. But let's dive into those.
Yeah. So all three of those peptides are what are known as there's one more. There's CJC1295. Those are what we call growth hormone agonist peptides. So they're either a GHRH, which is a growth hormone releasing hormone peptide, or they're a GnRH, which is a growth hormone antagonist. So you sometimes want to take one that is the other versus the other, so you have the synergy. But here's the truth: sermorelin, I didn't even put it in my book because it's garbage.
Oh, okay.
Now on paper, sermorelin is amazing, but in theory, in practice, when we use it, you don't see the same results that you get from IPA, TESA, or CJC. So. It's okay. We can send you IPA.
Yeah.
Very truthfully, like when I first met my wife in 2012, we met on Match.com. We were both coming out of divorces. She has an amazing physique and was always hardworking. But when I put her on ipamorelin, it literally changed her physique to the point of where, I can show you the before and afters. It was like, people were like, what's going on? Our family members that were still estranged from the previous divorces and stuff were like, he's putting her on steroids. Look what she looks like. Because, literally she was on metformin. She was was on ipamorelin for like 6 months, and it transformed her body.
Wow.
And again, I don't want you to think like it was magic. I mean, she was already fit and trained, but it took her from like, looking decent in a bikini to a girl who could step on stage at any moment and win. You know what I mean? So like that's where it went with her. And I've seen that in thousands of women that I've coached and thousands of women that I've consulted with versus online and in person. IPA is the strongest peptide for women, pound for pound, inch for inch, because of 3 reasons. It does not disturb your body's natural endogenous growth hormone.
Good.
So it cannot disturb it. And it also does not increase any competing hormones like prolactin or cortisol, which, as you know, cortisol is not good. You don't want cortisol secretion, and prolactin can just cause hormonal imbalances and dysregulation. So when you use ipamorelin, it's just in total isolation, like a 200 to 300 microgram dose right before bed. You're going to sleep deeper, build muscle, get leaner, increase your libido and well-being a little bit, and you just feel better when you're on that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now the other one's Tessa and CJC. So Tessa is the strongest growth hormone agonist peptide that we know of. It is also FDA approved. It's known as a Grifta. It was FDA approved for men who have what is called a disease called lipodystrophy, which is actually it's usually found in men that have HIV. And what lipodystrophy is like this congeal or aggregation of visceral body fat, like right around the abs. And so testosterone, when they found it or created it, it rips through belly fat. So for men who are obviously attempting to lose their belly, get leaner, get a 6-pack, whatever, it's awesome at ripping through fat right here. I don't really like it as much for women because obviously women don't tend to carry fat in their belly. They usually carry it on their hips and their glutes, or even their lower back. So IPA is going to be better from a fat, like a regional body fat distribution or redistribution standpoint. The other one to mention is CJC 1295. You will see, my company included, a lot of companies will combine IPA and CJC together because it's that pulse. It's the GnRH versus the GRH. You get both combinations of it. The problem with it, and why I'm not a big proponent of it, is it's too strong. A lot of people inject CJC and they get like niacin flush, or they get like it's not nausea, but you just get a flush.
Wow.
But with IPA, you don't notice anything. I've never known anyone who's injected IPA and ever had a side effect from it. So again, it's very, very safe. The side effects, just so we say it, because people, I go on all these podcasts and they're like, Jay never talks about side effects. He only says the good stuff. And so I always say this, and it's the truth, like you won't have side effects with peptides if you do what I say, which is you start with a low dose and you proceed cautiously. You don't inject high boluses and high combinations of multiple things because then you don't know what is doing what, right? Start with one, understand what it does for you. Again, you're biochemically unique, so start in isolation and then assess, right? Now, that's not to say that you can't take a BPC and a TB500 if you're critically injured, right? Somebody breaks your arm, you have an ACL replacement or an elbow replacement or whatever, then sure, you can take BPC and TB500 at the same time because the TB500 is suppressing inflammation and the BPC is increasing angiogenesis, which is red blood cell and healing. So it's fine to do that. But just, again, if you're going to target a peptide or you're going to target a specific issue, always focus on like one peptide to understand how it works in you before throwing all these peptides. Because that's one of the things, and I'm sure you have tons of people in your audience that are going to be like, oh my God, I listened to Jay, I read his book, or I listened to other podcasts that he's on, and he talks about all these peptides, and I want to do it now, and I want to get all of them and go once. And I always say, look, that's not going to work. What is the most pressing need that you have? For most people, it's fat, right? They have inflammation, they have too much belly fat or hip fat or butt fat or wherever it is. So it's like focus on losing the body fat and then pick one, maybe 2 peptides. Because if you are injured, you could, of course, use IPA, Tessa, or CJC along with BPC, right? But it just focus on the biggest needle mover for you. Don't think, he's talking about bioregulators and all these other things too, that I want to like take this, and this, and this, and start shotgunning your peptides and your bioregulators at one time, because then you're never going to know what's doing what.
2 more topics.
Yeah, of course.
First is these, different pills in the marketplace that are being marketed as natural peptides and blah, blah, blah. So let's talk about that. And then I'm going to share with you my opinion on trizepatide and
I want to talk about GLPs because I'm going to blow your mind on that. But first off, I'll just be very honest. We should separate this too, because people will ask, are compound pharmacy preparations of peptides better or less than research versions? There's no difference. as a guy who is, formulating some of the biggest from the largest manufacturers, by the way, USA, not Chinese, 80% of raw materials right now in the peptide space, whether it's compounded or research, comes from China. We are going to work on fixing that. In fact, my company right now has 2 separate USA manufacturers, one in Orlando, one in Philadelphia. By next year, we will get 0 of our raw material from China.
Wow.
It will all come from the United States. Now, I'm not saying, for people listening, that raw materials from China are bad. They're not. In fact, almost all the peptides that you've injected, I've injected, anyone who's listening to this have injected, have probably started in their raw form or their inert form in China. But the manufacturing process in China is far cheaper. I wouldn't call it riskier, but let's just say that they don't have the rigorous scientific controls that we have in the United States. So obviously moving where everything, the origin and the initiation of the whole process starting in the USA is always going to be better for most people.
Yeah.
And again, I know it'll improve in China and things will get better. And obviously, hopefully this trade embargo thing, we'll get through that too. And we'll start working together. And maybe we won't, but at the end of the day, most people are going to buy stuff that's controlled and manufactured in the USA before they go anywhere else.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do agree with you. I think a lot of good marketers are leveraging the term peptide, even though if you look at it, it's like, okay, there's some hydrolyzed ingredients, but we're not necessarily talking about, we're not talking about peptides, okay?
Right.
I can call my product right behind you collagen peptide.
Exactly. I was just going to go to
but
collagen.
I'm not necessarily saying peptide. It's just collagen. So I think we do need to be careful. A lot of the results that I see with these different natural peptides and vegan peptides and all that, the pills they are the same results that you would see with consuming enough protein, working out, effective. And it's like, it's tough, to see this. And I also don't name names. Stay tuned for episode 2. We'll name names. We name names.
I mean, we both know there's one person that's like everywhere right now promoting this. And of course, it's a multi-level marketing scam. He's got women and men who are involved in this, and now they're coming to you and me, and they're like, hey, you should get behind this with your audience and your email list and all this. So, I mean, like, it just stay away, buyer beware. But again, back to the research, and then I'll answer it. Because I definitely want to talk about GLPs. It's important. But research versus compounded, they're the same. Provided that your compound pharmacy or your research company is providing certificates of authenticity, is formulating and doing sterility process and control in the United States. So it's just buyer beware. The majority of peptide research chemical companies that are online right now are literally brewing it up in their basement, their kitchens, some warehouse, some back office alley warehouse. I mean, it's crazy. And again, as we've just been saying, it's just so many people are trying to make $1 off of this craze. And so it's like, be very cautious. Some of the biggest players in the space, Peptide Sciences, my company now, BioLongevity Labs. I mean, I can assure you that our companies, we've been around a long time. We've spent a lot of money in research and development, a lot of money in branding, a lot of money in doing the things we're doing. We're not going to waste money and put ourselves at risk by crossing lines and skipping processes when there's so many people to help, And again, I'm not in this business to make money. I mean, yes, there are healthy margins and it is a very lucrative business to be in right now, but I'm in this to help billions of people. I have been teaching since 2012, until I got a website where people started reading my information, which was like in 2013, to help people. That's why I'm here. I'm not getting paid to be on this podcast. I could be at my office doing work right now, but I come and I evangelize and I tell amazing people such as yourself and their audiences that there is a better way than allopathic medicine, right? So like, I truly am here to give and to serve. Now let's talk about GLPs.
Yes. Let me share my opinion with you.
Do,
I think we're probably aligned in many ways.
Sure.
So I have many clients who are coming into the Faster Way or who are already part of the community and they're saying, okay, I need to lose 10 pounds and my doctor is prescribing me Ozempic.
Sure.
Okay, so in this particular case, I need to lose 10 pounds. My doctor is prescribing me Ozempic. Here's what I'm seeing. It's a 60-40 where 60% are saying, oh my goodness, I felt awful. My poop turned black, just all kinds of different weird side effects. I had no energy. My hair was falling out. I lost a pound a week, but it's the same amount I would lose if I was.
Exactly.
So 60-40, even maybe 70-30. Now, I have other clients who have a history of insulin resistance. They are morbidly obese.
Right.
They are a different category. And they say, you know what? The semaglutide actually helped me significantly to overcome
Appetite
this
suppression.
insulin resistance.
Yep.
I now don't have the food noise. I used to drink every night. Psychologically, I'm not obsessing over food. Da, da, da. So for me, it's two very different groups. But the problem that I see is everyone is being prescribed Ozempic, whether it's their IV guy or their med spa or their doctor or the Instagram influencer, where there are very specific cases where I do think it's positive. And then the person who needs to lose 10 pounds, guess what else they're losing is muscle because they're so tired. They're not even working out and lifting heavy.
So well said, by the way. So I'm going to go way deeper.
Great.
Way crazier. So it's 90% do it wrong. 10% do it right. Now, why is this? And then I'm going to get into the Jay Campbell's rules of engagement or the 10 commandments of using GLPs. So the reason that it's done wrong is you just mentioned it. Everybody and their mother in medicine, functional health, chiropractors, weight loss clinics. I mean, anyone in this space that can somehow prescribe a GLP is doing it. Now, unfortunately, and again, not to toot my own horn or to brag, in my course, the GLP-1 Masterclass, which is almost now a year and a half old, I interview the world's foremost GLP doctor who's been prescribing GLP since 2006.
Oh, wow.
There's a bonus module. His name is Dr. Rudolph Eberwein. Him and his wife own a weight loss clinic that's highly successful in Miami. And they have been working with obese, insulin insensitive and metabolically dysregulated people for close to 20 years. Yeah. He was prescribing GLPs before anybody even knew what a GLP was, right? So when you interview him and you talk to a person like that who has all this incredible experience in the clinical and of course also the anecdotal world, he can talk at a level. But the bottom line is, people are trying to make money, Amanda. I mean, you've got all these people who don't understand GLPs. They don't understand the modality of the people that are taking GLPs. It's just what I said at the very beginning of this podcast: prescribe high, go higher, make money for myself, make money for my distributor, make money for the pharma rep who comes into my office, and of course, make money for the manufacturer. So here's how we fix this. We don't use a GLP unless we understand that there are rules of engagement to use a GLP. And this is going to literally stop 70% of people in the marketplace from using GLPs. Now, again, I don't have any, aspersions that these people are going to listen or do this because, again, people want the easy button. They want the hack. They want the cheat sheet. They want the cheat code. But in order to use a GLP and actually do it effectively, these are the rules of engagement. Number one, we have to exercise. Do you have any idea how many people are using GLPs and not exercising? It's insane, right? So we have to exercise, and exercise is defined as we have to lift weights or do bone-bearing resistance training, whether that's hot Pilates or bar, or like you said, isometric yoga, something that builds muscle and isotonic tone. And then number two, cardio. We have to strengthen the aerobic and the vascular architecture of our bodies at the same time that we're taking these. That's number one. Number two, we have to eat enough protein to fuel the body's accelerated metabolism from the stage 2 and stage 3 GLPs. And I'm going to get to all of the stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 at some point when we're talking this, because it's important that people understand this. Semaglutide is the least effective, which is Ozempic, is the least effective GLP because all it does is suppress appetite.
Right.
It does not stimulate metabolism. It does not do all the other things that these newer and more powerful and much better for metabolic health GLPs do. But the bottom line is, lift weights, do cardio, or do bone-bearing exercise. Number two, eat enough protein. Now, people ask this question, what does that mean? It means that if you're 400 pounds, you're not eating 400 grams of protein. You're eating the amount of grams that your goal body weight is.
Oh my gosh, I always say that. That's my exact
so
formula.
Goal body weight is probably the best way to explain it to the average person, because if you tell them the truth is, what is your skeletal body weight? They can't figure it out. They have no way to figure it out, unless they do a bod pod, and very few people can do a bod pod. They're not going to be able to do the math to figure out their skeletal muscle weight. Yeah. So if you're 400 pounds and you're a 5'6" woman or man, and you should be 155 pounds, that's how many grams of protein you're going to eat, right? So 1, 2, and 3, lift weights, do cardio, eat enough protein is 3% of the people using GLPs right now. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. Number 4, and this is the biggest needle mover, and I've already brought this up to you, are you hormonally optimized? If you're not hormonally optimized, 100% you're going to lose muscle. Because there's no way around it. That's how effective these drugs are. They suppress appetite, they stimulate basal metabolic rate, they increase de novo thermogenesis, which is burning calories at rest. So you have all these things that they do amazingly well. And so if you're not doing the things, cardio, lifting weights, eating enough protein, and making sure you're hormonally optimized, you're going to lose muscle. Now, those 4 things, there's a bunch of other things which I don't even have to get into, because those are the most important things to understand.
Agree.
If you do those 4 things and then you use, and this is where we're going with this, a micro dose of a GLP, greatest drugs in the history of mankind, nothing comes close. I can show you peer-reviewed research, curing alcoholism, curing food noise, curing obsessive compulsive disorders, curing gambling, curing porn, all these addictive things that people have. You take a microdose of these drugs and it completely rewires the brain. And it rewires the brain permanently.
Right.
That's what's so insane about these drugs. And again, this is not Jay Campbell, hypothesizing or, just spouting out a bunch of stuff because I sell these things. I'm saying this because this is the peer review. They know this. But again, as I said, 10% of the public is doing this right, if not less. And again, I'm very, very outspoken and adamant about this. Most people do this wrong. And so let's talk about why are they doing it wrong, because I think people need to understand this. If you're metabolically diseased, dysregulated, or obese, and you start on semaglutide or tirzepatide, let's talk about tirzepatide. That is Mounjaro or Zepbound. Right. And all of a sudden, the weight starts coming off because you stop stuffing your pie hole, right? You're excited. Your pant sizes are dropping if you're a man or a woman. Your dress sizes are dropping. You're losing weight. You're like, this is the greatest thing ever. But guess what? You're not eating. You're not eating your protein. You're unlikely, again, not everyone, but most, not lifting, not doing the things. And then, of course, you don't care whether or not you're hormonally optimized, because why would you? Because your weight's coming off. Now, fast forward 4 to 6 weeks, and what have we done? We've damaged our thyroid. Right. We've destroyed our metabolism. We are now losing hair because we already had a hormonal deficiency. Our hormones are even more out of whack. We have Wegovy face, Wegovy neck, Wegovy ass, Wegovy back, all these things that you talk about or that you hear in the mainstream news that all the mainstream doctors glom onto and say, see, we told you, these are horrible. You got Brian Artis out there saying, snake venom, they're killing people because of snake venom. I mean, it's so outlandish what is happening, and all of it's true. I'll be the first person to say all of it's true. But would it be true if people did what I just talked about of the 4, again, there's 10 commandments, but the 4 basic requirements that you must own and possess and, every day take action on, none of these things would happen. Now, let me talk about doing it right. Men and women who microdose a GLP. Now, granted, semaglutide is still the most prescribed because it comes through benefits. Okay. So you have a lot of men and women that are still using this because it's cheap and they can get it affordably through their benefits or through their copayment or whatever nonsense that is. This should be I would say it by the end of this year, it should be phased out. Because again, what does it do other than suppress appetite? It doesn't stimulate metabolic rate. It's not making obese people exercise. It's not helping them exercise because it's not giving them energy.
It's not making them healthier.
Exactly. And this is something that we recently discovered, I would say, like in the last 2 months, and we're now talking about this when we speak. In fact, I'll be speaking about this at Dave Asprey next 2 weeks from now. I'm going to blow people's minds on this. But most people who are attempting to lose weight in the United States today, and when I mean attempting, like actually, are proactive and they want to do it, right? They're using GLPs. Most of them are using Zepbound or Mounjaro. Now, the other one that I haven't mentioned right now, which we sell, which is not still FDA approved clinically yet, even though it's been through stage 2 and stage 3 trials, is what is called retatrutide.
Yep.
And that's the triple stage agonist. And that's the greatest drug in the history of mankind. And we can talk about that. You can ask me questions in a second. But for the most people out there right now who get it from a compound pharmacy or from their doctor, they're using one or two, which is obviously one semaglutide, two is tirzepatide. If they're using tirzepatide, they are literally at a place where they don't eat, they feel, again, this is starting out, they don't understand that they have to do eat enough protein and train and exercise and all that stuff. They get to a place of just, they become lethargic. And then it all ends. And again, going back to the problem, the doctor prescribes more. The functional health provider, wherever they're getting it, they provide more, they charge them more. And so eventually it just is a no-win situation. But again, doing it right, microdosing, and again, before I leave you and I don't say this because people will always say, you never gave the dose. What's a microdose? A microdose is of either stage 2 or stage 3, because again, I don't really like stage 1, which is again semaglutide, is somewhere between 0.10 and 0.5 milligrams every other day in a week.
Wow.
That is nothing.
Very small.
That is nothing.
Tiny.
That is nothing. And why this works and why I've never seen failure on this is you're not developing an addiction, right? Because obviously our receptor sensitivity to these drugs can become overwhelmed when we start too high and go higher, which is again 90% of people. And also we don't develop the negative things, which I was getting to, which my brain rabbit holed about talking about what I'm going to be releasing at Dave Asprey. And that is, if you're losing weight, attempting to actively lose weight, you're using a low carb, keto, or carnivore diet. Now I'm going to blow your mind. All these people are not eating enough carbs. They're not eating enough greens. They're just eating, protein and fat.
Right.
What happens when you eat protein and fat and you take a GLP? It slows gastric emptying.
Right.
It slows gastric motility. So these people have no way to metabolize and get these carbs, because they're not eating carbs, they're not having fiber, to get these through the bowel unobstructed. And so all of these issues like bladder issues, thyroid issues, gallbladder issues, and pancreas issues that people are reporting, which are true, are because they're not eating carbs. And so their bodies are not able to metabolize or push through from healthy bowel movements. So all those issues are due to people eating high fat, high protein, not getting enough carbs, and slowing down their digestive tract.
There are so many things that you need to do right.
Yes.
But the problem is people are not being educated.
Exactly.
It's not your fault. Listen, if you are listening and you have
100%.
tried this and you tried it 2 years ago and your doctor prescribed it and they didn't give you a single plan, my philosophy here at Faster Way is arms open wide for people who are on
100%.
these drugs, because I want to provide a meal plan. I want to provide a workout. And I agree with you. It can be right for certain people if done properly, but there are 100 ways to do it wrong. And one way to do it right with your 10 commandments, which I love that you have.
No, by the way, you're 100% right. And just so you know, for those listening, my mom was morbidly obese and she died, God rest her soul, 2 years ago of COVID, but she was metabolically inflamed. And of course, they gave her that horrible drug that kills everybody. I forget what it's called, remdesivir at the very end, and so she died like literally a couple of weeks later. But the reality is that I have massive compassion in my heart for people that are inflamed and obese and metabolically dysregulated. And I attempt to talk about this because I want people to understand, because most people do not understand this. Like when you're obese, your body is experiencing suffering and pain 24/7. You have a cytokine storm firing through your cellular networks at all time. And so people don't realize that those folks are suffering. They don't have energy to exercise. It's horrible what they go through. So if you're listening to this and you're one of those people, I have amazing and utmost compassion for you. There are ways that you can be helped. If you're not one of those people and you have family and friends, stop what you're doing, go out of your way to help and encourage them. Now, granted, you can't proselytize, you can't preach, people will come to you when they're ready, right? Like
Yeah.
the teacher appears when the student is ready. But at the end of the day, like make sure that you attempt, if you can, and positively give them encouragement, give them instruction, because there are ways. And that's one of the things that is true, what you just said. These are amazing tools for obese people if they're done correctly. And so that's where people like you and I have to do an amazing job of evangelizing these and educating people, because if we don't, they're going to go right down that path where 90% have gone and literally end up destroyed. And believe me, you are right. These things can cause extreme metabolic damage. In fact, they can permanently destroy thyroid function, right? So you have to be very, very cautious. Again, and just the 4 things, just to reiterate them. Number 1, we have to exercise. We have to do cardio and bone bearing and weight training, again, to build muscle. We have to eat enough protein, again, goal body weight in the amount of grams a day. And then we have to make sure we're hormonally optimized. And a lot of people are going to say, Jay, if I'm metabolically deranged and obese, I can't exercise at all because I have no energy. That's where the hormone optimization and the mitochondrial peptides come in. Because if you give them testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, plus you give them the GH agonists and mitochondrial stimulating peptides at the same time, they will have energy.
Yeah.
So it's, again, it's kind of like a giant, foundational, what can we do holistically to add all of these things to people? Because I do understand that obese people have no energy. I do understand they're suffering. I know that their default state is literally pain and agony and, again, suffering. So you got to look at all of those things in combination. And if they're not hormonally optimized, you really have to make sure that they start on that path and then give them peptides at the same time, because that will allow them to have the energy to get over the hump.
Yeah. Start with the foundation.
100%.
Jay, this has been so informative.
Thank you.
I have learned so much.
Beautiful.
It's really helped me even with some of the peptides that I've experimented
Sure,
with.
sure.
So many of my listeners have not even heard about many of these different peptides. Where can we find and follow you online?
Yeah, so 100%. I appreciate you. This is a great podcast. I really enjoy when I get a chance to talk about things at a very intelligent, educated level, but at the same time, we're not going over people's heads.
Totally.
We're really making this relatable and understandable. They can find me at my website, which is probably now in the top 5 websites in the world for peptide related information. That's jcampbell.com. There's over 100 articles now that are on in the top 5 rankings on Google for literally everything peptide. If you search peptides on Google, you'll eventually get to my website, if not right away. And then you can find me on social media at jcampbell333. Now, if you're interested in getting on peptides and you want more information about peptides, well, actually, I also have a website that I give people for podcasts. I almost forgot to do it. It's jcampbell.com/free books. Every single one of my books that I've ever written is there as a PDF for free.
Great.
So all you have to do is just go on there and download the PDF. So the peptide books, the hormone books, they're all there, all the fat loss books. My newest book is called 30 Days to Shreds, which you and I did not talk about today, but we're complete alignment about autophagy and hormesis and getting fasting and being metabolically efficient / optimized, carbohydrate refeeds, all that. So that's all in there, 30 Days to Shreds. So all those books are there for free. And then you'll find me on social media at jcampbell333. My company is BioLongevity Labs. If you guys edit this and I give you a code so that you can actually make money as an affiliate, if not, you can just use my code, which is JAYC, which gives everyone 15% off any of the products. We're very aggressive with our marketing and sales so that there's always sales going on. And like I said, everything is promoted relatable for people. So like it's healing, cognition, fat loss, muscle gain, bioregulators, like we're always promoting so people can understand how they can use what will be effective.
Amazing. You are the best. Thank you so much for your time.
Of course.
We are better off for it.
Awesome.
I hope you all have a great rest of the day. Go check out Jay's websites. Bye.